Imagine Egypt, what comes to mind? Towering pyramids, the enigmatic Sphinx, and all-powerful pharaohs like Tutankhamun and Cleopatra. But what if I told you that this is only half the story? What if the grand narrative of ancient Egypt, the one we've been taught for centuries, has a missing first chapter? A chapter that has been deliberately ignored, buried under millennia of sand and secrecy. Long before the first pyramid was even conceived, before a single hieroglyph was carved into stone, and even before the title of pharaoh existed, a different power ruled the fertile banks of the Nile. These were not the pharaohs we know. They were kings of a forgotten era, a time archaeologists call the pre-dynastic period. For years their existence was dismissed as myth, but new discoveries are forcing us to confront a startling possibility, that a sophisticated, organized civilization thrived in Egypt thousands of years before the official story begins. Today, we journey back into the mists of time, beyond the age of Narmer, the legendary unifier of Egypt. We will uncover forbidden inscriptions that hint at a different line of kings, examine strange artifacts that defy conventional explanation, and follow genetic clues that could rewrite the very origins of Egyptian civilization. Who were these lost rulers? Were they the true founders of Egypt, whose legacy was erased by the dynasties that followed? Or were they something else entirely, a civilization so ancient its memory has faded into legend? Prepare yourself, because the evidence we're about to explore challenges everything we thought we knew about the dawn of history. This is the story of the rulers before the pharaohs. The official timeline of ancient Egypt begins around 3100 BC, with King Narmer, famously depicted on the Narmer palette, uniting Upper and Lower Egypt into a single, powerful kingdom. This event is considered the dawn of dynastic Egypt, the beginning of the long line of pharaohs who would build the pyramids and forge an empire. But this clean, simple starting point is misleading. It's like opening a book in the middle and assuming nothing came before it. For decades, archaeologists working in the desert sands have been finding clues that just don't fit this official narrative. In places like Abydos, Nakada, and Hierakonpolis, they've unearthed tombs and settlements that are significantly older than the first dynasty. These sites reveal a complex society that was already flourishing long before Narmer's time. We're talking about organized agriculture, intricate pottery, and elaborate burial customs that point to a sophisticated belief in the afterlife. One of the most tantalizing pieces of evidence comes from the Palermo stone, one of the most important historical documents from ancient Egypt. While parts of it are lost, the surviving fragments list the kings of the first 5 dynasties. But crucially, before the list of known historical kings, there's a section listing rulers who reigned before Menes, another name for Narmer. These pre-dynastic kings are depicted wearing the crowns of both Upper and Lower Egypt, suggesting the idea of a unified kingdom might be much older than we believe. Mainstream Egyptology has often dismissed these names as mythological figures, divine ancestors created to legitimize the later pharaohs. But what if they were real? What if the Palermo stone is a fragmented record of a lost line of kings? Let's look closer at the evidence on the ground. At the ancient site of Abydos, a royal necropolis for the earliest pharaohs, archaeologists discovered a tomb designated UJ, dated to around 3320 BC, centuries before Narmer. This tomb was incredibly lavish for its time. It contained hundreds of imported pottery jars, originally filled with wine from the Levant, a carved ivory scepter, and, most astonishingly, small bone and ivory tags inscribed with what appear to be the earliest known examples of Egyptian writing. This wasn't just a tribal chieftain's grave, it was the tomb of a powerful and wealthy ruler. The inscriptions on the tags are still being deciphered, but they represent a primitive form of hieroglyphs, pushing back the invention of writing in Egypt by several centuries. The identity of the individual buried in Tomb UJ is a mystery. Scholars have nicknamed him King Scorpion Fern, due to a scorpion symbol found among the inscriptions. This ruler commanded significant resources, engaged in international trade, and presided over a court that was already experimenting with a system of writing. He wasn't a mythological figure. He was a real person of immense power, ruling a unified or near-unified kingdom from Abydos long before the so-called unification of Egypt. So why has his story been relegated to a footnote in history? The mystery deepens when we venture further south, to a site called Gebel el Iraq. Here in the late 19th century, a stunningly ornate flint knife handle was discovered. The Gebel el Iraq knife, now housed in the Louvre, is a masterpiece of pre-dynastic art. On one side, it depicts a scene of river combat with distinctively Egyptian boats. But on the other side, something extraordinary appears. We see a heroic figure, a master of animals, standing between two rampant lions. This figure is not Egyptian in style. He has a beard and wears a cap that is unmistakably Mesopotamian. Furthermore, the scene depicts a battle between men using Mesopotamian-style weapons and clothing. What is a scene straight out of Sumerian mythology doing on a high-status object in pre-dynastic Egypt? This isn't just a stray artifact. It points to a deep and influential connection with Mesopotamia, the other great cradle of civilization, at a time when Egypt was supposedly still a collection of primitive tribes. Could it be that the earliest rulers of Egypt were not native to the Nile Valley, or that they were heavily influenced by an even older external culture? The knife raises uncomfortable questions that challenge the neat, self-contained story of Egypt's origins. It suggests that the birth of this great civilization was far more complex and interconnected than we've been led to believe. Perhaps the most compelling and controversial evidence comes from within our own DNA. Modern genetic studies of both ancient mummies and modern Egyptians are revealing a fascinating and complex picture of the Nile Valley's population history. While the genetic makeup of Egyptians has remained remarkably stable for millennia, some studies have identified an ancient sub-Saharan African genetic influence that was more pronounced in the pre-dynastic period than in later times. Other research points to migrations from the Near East during the Neolithic and pre-dynastic periods, which may have brought new technologies, agricultural practices, and perhaps even new leadership structures to the Nile Valley. This doesn't mean Egyptians were invaded or replaced. Rather, it suggests that pre-dynastic Egypt was a melting pot of different peoples and cultures. Could one of these migrating groups have brought with them the organizational skills and ideological framework that gave rise to the first kings? This aligns with some ancient Egyptian legends themselves. The historian Manetho, writing in the 3rd century BC, spoke of a divine age when gods ruled Egypt, followed by an age of followers of Horus, demigods who served as a transition to the mortal kings. While this is mythology, it could be a distant cultural memory of a time when a powerful ruling class, perhaps with foreign origins or unique knowledge, established themselves in the Nile Valley. Were the mysterious rulers of Tomb Uj and the figures on the Palermo stone part of this elite group, the real-life followers of Horus who laid the groundwork for the pharaohs? This theory suggests a radical rethinking of history. The rise of Egypt may not have been a slow, isolated, and purely indigenous process. Instead, it might have been kickstarted by an elite group who unified the local tribes, established trade routes, introduced new technologies like writing, and created the very concept of divine kingship that would define Egypt for the next 3,000 years. So why was their legacy erased? Why does history begin with Narmer and not with King Scorpion Wine or the other rulers listed on the Palermo stone? The answer may lie in the very nature of power. When a new dynasty takes control, it often seeks to legitimize its rule by rewriting history. By positioning Narmer as the great unifier, the first true king of all Egypt, the early dynastic pharaohs effectively erased their predecessors. They may have absorbed their achievements, co-opted their symbols, and even claimed their gods, all while writing them out of the official record. The pre-dynastic rulers became inconvenient truths, ghosts of a past that needed to be forgotten in order to build a new future. They were not lost in the sense of a cataclysmic event. They were systematically overshadowed, their accomplishments claimed by their successors. Their tombs were built over, their inscriptions were ignored, and their names faded from memory, surviving only as cryptic entries on a stone tablet or as anonymous occupants of lavish, forgotten graves. The civilization they built didn't vanish. It evolved. It became the foundation upon which the pharaohs built their everlasting empire. The story of pre-dynastic Egypt isn't one of a lost civilization, but of a deliberately hidden one. A founding chapter that was torn out of the history books. The sands of Egypt still hold countless secrets. Every new excavation at sites like Abydos and Nakata brings us closer to understanding this forgotten era. Archaeologists are using satellite imagery to find undiscovered settlements and advanced dating techniques to create a more accurate timeline. The story is far from over. What we are witnessing is the slow rediscovery of the true genesis of ancient Egypt. The rulers before the pharaohs are stepping out from the shadows of mythology and into the light of history. Their story forces us to ask, how many other first chapters of human history have been deliberately forgotten or erased? The past is never truly buried, and as we continue to dig, the silent kings of the Nile may yet have their stories told. Thank you for joining us on this journey into Egypt's hidden past. If you found this exploration as fascinating as I did, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into ancient mysteries. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. What do you think happened to these pre-dynastic rulers? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Until next time, keep questioning everything.